Welcome to the Agile Career Podcast, where we will take you on the journey from employed for life to employable for life. We'll give you the tips, insights, and strategies to help you build the transferable skills that you'll need. So let's get started. Please welcome your host, Günther Richter.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Agile Career Podcast. This is episode 8, and in this episode we're going to talk about how you can create or craft your own role. To do this, we're joined by Foti Panagiotakopoulos, all the way from Greece today, so I'm really pleased to welcome Foti onto the show. And in addition to that, he's also going to talk about how he overcame a challenge. Not in a way that you think he might, but we're going to leave that to the detail of the show. So before we get into the detail, just a little warning, if there are little ears around, there are 1 or 2 swear words in this episode, so just be aware of that. Just before we do get started with the interview, I'd like to let everyone know that I am running a bit of a podcast review party at the moment, if you want to call it that. And all I'm asking you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and leave an honest review of the show. I will then be doing a lucky draw, and the winner of that lucky draw will receive a £15 Amazon gift card. If you do listen to your podcasts on another platform and they do allow you to leave reviews, that's great. You can do that as well. Just take a screen grab of that review and email it through to me. You can send it through to info@agilecareerpodcast.com. I'm running this till the 12th of June, so there is a cutoff date, and I will be doing the lucky draw on the 13th of June. So good luck with that, and now let's get started with the interview. Welcome to the show, Foti.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, super. I'm really glad you could make the time available. As we always do on the show, is have really interesting conversations about people's careers and people's progressions and the sorts of different journeys they take to where they are now. And what I was really keen to draw out in this show is talk about some of the varied stuff that you've done. And I think what's different to some of the people I've interviewed is you've kind of got two things on the go at the moment. And I wanted to delve a little bit into that and draw some insight from that. But I mean, before we get into the detail, please, would you take a few moments to introduce yourself and kind of what it is you do at the moment?
Sure. So right now, I currently have 2 jobs. So my primary job is head of growth at a managed hosting company called euroVPS. And that was my first job ever in life, actually, like right out of university. And I was the first non-engineer hire there, hired by my older brother, his first startup. And I took over marketing there. And fast forwards 12 years later, and I founded GrowthMentor.com, which is a platform where you can book calls with vetted growth marketing and startup mentors just to kind of like chat about growth challenges, what you're going through, advice on different tools, basically anything growth marketing or startup related. Yeah, like in a nutshell, those are the 2 things that I'm doing right now.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a really great summary. And I guess, one of the key points you mentioned there was that you were the first non-engineer hire at euroVPS. And I guess coming from your academic background and I guess studying a non-engineering kind of field of study, what was that transition like when you landed in this very technically dominated environment?
Well, to say it was pretty bad, like to be honest with you, because I didn't know Linux, and Linux was like the language. And if you didn't know Linux, then you couldn't really talk. So I had to quickly remedy that, even though I didn't really use it per se. Like I wasn't doing support or engineering or anything. But like if you want to market a technical product, you have to understand how it works, right? So I was also under a lot of pressure by my older brother to be more technical, and I was looking up to him like my guru in a sense. He's the most brilliant sysadmin I've ever met in my entire life, and I've met many sysadmins. So like having him as my mentor to kind of show the way of like what it means to really hustle and work your ass off was kind of fundamental for my career moving forwards, because it set the benchmark of what hard work really looks like. So like just a bit of background about what I studied though. All right. So I went to uni in London. I went to Cass Business School. I graduated in 2007 with a degree in finance. And I was kind of not really doing anything for the year afterwards. I was like trying to, like a lot of graduates do, they take 1 year to kind of figure out what they're going to do. And then 2008 hit, right? And the crisis, the big recession, and finding a job in the city after that in finance was kind of impossible. Like I really did try, but it didn't work. And I just didn't want to get a job at like some bank doing some bullshit. So my older brother offered me that position at euroVPS. It's like, dude, help out with us. You know, like we're growing. The company was really growing really quickly back then. Like it had cracked product market fit like after its first year back in 2005. So I was like, all right, hell yeah, you know, like I can work with my bro. I love him. Great guy, fun to be around with. How hard could this be? And he didn't know anything about marketing either because he had used just this one agency, which really wasn't doing a good job. So he wanted somebody that he could trust in house, and that's, I guess, one of the good things of working with family. One of the good things. There's other bads as well, which I guess that could be for another episode. But generally, the good is that you're trusted, right? To just like do what you can, do the best that you can, and that's what I did. You know, the first 2 years, I just threw myself into all things digital marketing. So this was back 2008, 9. And I remember reading a lot of blog posts, trying to just do a lot more than I probably should have been trying to do at the same time back then with the limited resources that I had. But I had so many learnings there because I made just mistake after mistake after mistake. Like I just kept hitting like brick wall after brick wall. And you know, at some point, like I realized that this isn't really that hard. You know, you just have to keep trying and experimenting and learning from your mistakes, and just constantly be learning because the environment is shifting just so rapidly, right? Like what was working in 2009, like fast forward 2011, 12, when the Google updated its algorithm to the penguin and the panda, like none of that stuff worked anymore. Like I used to be able to rank websites for very competitive keywords by just building WordPress comment links. Like that's kind of dating me right now, but I mean it changed really rapidly. So you have to adjust. And I like and this kind of like, I guess, dovetails in with the theme of your show, right? Like how to be agile and learn the things that you need to learn to be relevant in the workforce, or if not the workforce, like relevant towards creating the dream that you want as an entrepreneur if you're going to build something yourself. So like basically through having to learn everything by myself in marketing and without having a team of people that were in-house, I ended up making a lot of relationships with freelancers that I knew that I needed, like roles. Like for example, really quick early on, I knew that it's impossible to build a growth team if you don't have a designer, right? Because I had a lot of ideas in my head, like things that I wanted to execute, but I'm crap with Photoshop, right? But I know what beautiful is. I know what good design is. Like I can see it, I can spot it, I can explain why it's a good UX, right? But I just can't replicate that.
How you bring it to life, yeah.
I bring it, yeah. I mean, I can wireframe it. I've gotten pretty good at wireframing now, but I mean, beyond that, I'll definitely need somebody else. So one thing led to the next, you know, and you hire your first freelance designer, and you learn how not to manage that type of role. You burn that person, or that person burns you, and then you try again. You learn again, you adjust, you iterate your management style, and the same applies for developers as well. I've had to manage a lot of different developers over the years, and just go like pushing yourself to constantly create things and push the limits of what your capabilities are, like forces you to have to work with other people, because you can't do everything by yourself, right? Like there's no way.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think many people make that mistake of saying, well, you know, I can be everything to everyone, I can cover off all the stuff by myself and ultimately just get swamped or not make the progress that they need to. So that's a good point.
You have to be a realist and understand what your strengths are, your weaknesses, have that goal, the stretch goal and also the short-term goal. You need to break down your stretch goals into multiple short-term ones, and just be like obsessively addicted to ticking things off, like every day to be accomplishing, even if it's a small thing, but something that gets you a little bit closer towards your end goal. And if your end goal switches or kind of morphs after a couple of weeks, then no worries, don't shoot yourself up over that. I mean, so many times, like I've gotten very deep into projects and I end up just like that, like changing my mind, like, you know what? I just realized that this is a complete fuck up. Like we shouldn't continue with this, and some people are like, yeah, you're changing your mind too often, man. Like, ooh, like I hear that a lot over the years, but I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a negative thing if you're basing those decisions based on your iterative learnings. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about agility, and as you say, the world of 2008 was different in the world of 2011, and it was different again in 2015. And I think, probably definitely as a business, you kind of realized that and you understood how you needed to make those changes. And I think part of the intent of, I guess, the kind of messaging across in this podcast is getting people to think from a career perspective. It's exactly the same. I wanted to draw out something you said earlier on when you came on board and you thought, you said it was really difficult and your brother's the greatest sysadmin. You didn't have those skills and you tried lots of things and you failed lots of times and you learned from those mistakes. I think, often learning from mistakes or being told to make mistakes and learn from them is, many organizations say that. And they want their people to do, or they say their people should do that, and feel comfortable or in a safe environment. But often they don't really follow through with that ethos, and mistakes are often seen as something very negative. So how did that kind of land? I guess also, working with family and, making mistakes and learning from them. How did you sort of deal with those?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we need to define what I need to better define what I mean by mistakes, right? So in hindsight, vision's 2020, right?
Yes.
So I look back and I realized that I made some mistakes, things that I would have done differently now. But through that process in the beginning, I was very conscious of my risk tolerance, right? So I tried to limit that with certain things. Like I did numerous website redesigns, and I would say the biggest mistake that I ever made in the earlier days, which I was forgiven for by the powers that be in that organization, was doing a full site redesign and forgetting to do 301 redirects on the old pages, so the link equity didn't pass to the new site. And I think that if you just like own up to it and be like, look, I made a mistake, I didn't know this, but I learned it, and that's one thing that's never going to happen again, right? Like that, if you're in an organization that the type that you should be in, that deserves you, like they're going to understand that, right? As long as you have that right attitude about it and be like, look, I fucked up, I learned it, like that's it, and move forwards.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, saying that you learned from that mistake and, you're not going ahead and making the same mistakes again. So that's a great point you've just made.
Yeah. So the mistakes, I mean, as I'm fast forward a little bit to where I am now, like at GrowthMentor, one of the things that growth marketing really pushes is this constant obsession with experimentation and not really doing anything without having a clear idea of what it is that you're trying to validate or prove. And I think learning from everything that you do is just fundamental, not just to growth marketing, but to any career that you're in.
Yeah, no, that's a super point. And I guess, I mean, so we got into a point now where you've kind of, I guess when you started at euroVPS, it was a fairly, would you say was an entry level kind of marketing job? I mean, you've certainly grown to where you're the VP of growth at the moment. when you started that role, what was your vision? Did you see it as a long-term thing, or was it something to kind of draw you away from that?
I created my own role. Like when I joined, I was the expectations were for me to learn Linux and to be like a clone of my brother, right? Kind of a secondary CTO, to help relieve his burden. So, I did end up going to Red Hat school, and I became RHCE certified and all that. I tried it out. I really did do my best. And I'm actually really proud of myself for actually getting that certification, because that was really hard. But then I never really used it because I wasn't passionate about it. I didn't like it. Like my calling was business development and marketing, because like I looked at the entire organization. I tried to decompose it and break it down into its components. I'm like, all right, great. We have the product, right? It's fantastic. And Chris is doing a great job at making sure that everything's online, reliable. And we've got our tech support, and they're doing fantastic on support. The clients love us and everything. But if nobody knows about you, like nothing really matters, right? Like you have to make it known that you're there. And that was the hole in the company. Like there wasn't any marketing going on. It was just this word of mouth sort of growth, which I knew had a finite lifespan. You can't rely on word of mouth forever, especially as new companies are entering into the market space with much deeper pockets, and just flooding the market with TPC ads and free credit to join their services. So I had to evolve into the role. I had to basically create this role out of necessity, because I wanted this company to succeed. And at the end of the day, it was a family business, right? Like my brother made it, and it's I just couldn't see it get passed on by the competition.
Yeah, no, that's I think a key point. And I think, the bit that you said there about being able to create your own role is really important, because I think, people in placed in that position sometimes could flounder and kind of not really know which direction to go. And I think, you kind of saw the organization needing a good mix in terms of what was in place technically, and saying, the solutions you provided and the great customer service, and thinking, okay, to bring that to market or to make people aware of that, we really need this growth approach. So I think that's a really good point that you drew out there. I guess thinking about your earlier career, and I know you said that your role at euroVPS was your first real job, but I mean, I guess before going back a little bit more, and I think something that people in the UK might not be too familiar with anymore is compulsory military service. And so you did have to spend some time in the military doing your compulsory military service prior to you entering into the workforce. And I guess that was a different set of learnings.
Well, actually, no, that was afterwards. That was in 2012 when I had to go. So I was already 5 years deep.
All right. Okay. So
yeah.
I think that makes for a better story, actually.
Yeah.
So thinking about now, you coming from a not to say that the organization or the corporate world was unstructured, but into a very now structured environment of the military. How did you find that transition?
Honestly, like I'm one of the few people that can say that I loved it. Like it was like summer camp for adults. Like I was at that point, I was so burned out with work. Like I just needed that break. Obviously, when they said, hey, you have to go, I deferred it for as long as I could. Let me tell you the story of the deferment. So like in Greece, you can defer it while you're in university. Right. But after you finish university, you have to go. So my paper said 2007, you're going to have to show up right after my bachelor's degree. But I really didn't want to go. Right. So I'm like, look, I'm going to study a master's degree and I'm going to do more study. So I got another 5 years deferment. And I did one of those master's degrees, one of those like remote ones. Right. Just like the minimum thing that I could spend to just say technically that I'm studying. Then I ended up really having to go because there was just no more deferment available. And I went in and I get inducted and I'm like, guys, aren't you going to ask for like my master's degree diploma to show that I was there? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, because then like you get a fine, you have to do more. Oh yeah. Show us the paper. And I show them and I'm like, well, if I didn't have that, what would you do? Like, oh, we'd give you like a 50 euro fine or something. Right. So it's like, anyway, a bit of a digression there, but the military was awesome because I did military police. So that was all in military police. It's just all about discipline. So you have to set an example for all of the other soldiers there. Your boots have to be the cleanest. You have to just, it's kind of grueling, the training, but then
it's like a software tester,
the enforcer. Yeah. Like you're the quality assurance basically of all of the other grunts over there. So it was fun. You get to meet loads of people around, and like as I said earlier, it was like summer camp for adults. Yeah.
And I mean, would you say there's any skills you took with you into the military?
Into the military? Probably not. I was kind of not really making my bed type of person. And there's definitely a lot of skills I took out from the military afterwards. That's for sure.
And that was going to be my next question. I mean, I guess after spending that time in a very structured environment, although you do describe it as, summer camp for adults, what were your sort of
army, man? Like it's
what were your key takeaways? I mean, what did you take into the role coming out of the army in terms of those learnings and skills?
A pride of doing the dirty work that just needs to be done, right? Like a new sense of understanding, right? Of what it means to force yourself to do things the right way, because it's the right way, right? Like that's what I was taught as a military police. Like, look, we're doing these things not because it's going to make a difference in war if like our pillow is folded in this sort of dimensions or anything. It makes you a better person to adhere to certain quality standards, right? And that transferred to life. Actually, the slogan of the military police is you were always like "Naise padas autonomos," which means like you will always be a military. Like it carries on that sort of ethos afterwards as well. But to be honest with you, like if you're halfway through if you're like I was 26 when I went in, and I was like well entrenched in work, and I was so pissed off about the whole thing. I'm like, you guys are wasting my time right now. But.
Yeah, I suppose, but equally so, it probably was a chance to reset, as you said. You're kind of burnt out, and I think even if you took one thing away from it, as you've just said, the pride of doing something right and doing it right because it's the right way to do it. I think that's a great takeaway. So, I guess then fast forwarding a few years back at euroVPS, and I think kind of growing that position, growing the company. Do you want to take me a little bit through that and how you started, I think, potentially finding a few challenges, which kind of led you on to the next stage of your thinking and the establishment of GrowthMentor?
Yeah, sure. So after the army, I got out, and it was around that time DigitalOcean started. For anyone that understands about servers and VPS and all that, they're massive. So that's when the whole trend of like cloud servers, self-managed, started coming about, and it took a big chunk. It didn't take a big chunk of it. It was an entirely new like sphere of competitors were popping up, because then there were the clones of DigitalOcean as well, and the race to the bottom started happening, right? And we were generally a premium positioned service. So I had to start thinking a little bit more outside of the box in terms of how to market the company. And I really took a deep dive into what a reflection of like what makes us unique. Why do people even like stay with us? So I spent a lot of time trying to understand our customer better, doing surveys and doing a lot of user research calls and qualitative coding as well from the results that you're going to get. That led me down towards repositioning the company towards a more managed service approach. And my brother also got a couple of very large enterprise clients, which helped with social proof towards that. So afterwards, we repositioned the organization, and I started experimenting with new channels as well. And this is where the kind of segue comes to GrowthMentor, because SEO became a lot more difficult due to the new algo updates. I started playing with PPC, right? So Facebook ads and Google ads and so on and so forth. And I had very little experience running Google ads and Facebook ads, but I knew that all my competitors were doing it, and it was incredibly important to at least show up, right? Especially for certain keywords that are like your money keywords, which really define your service. So spent a lot of time reading reading blog posts and taking courses, watching videos, and I realized that like the more content that I consumed, the more like decision paralysis I got, and the more imposter syndrome I got. Like I felt like I was not qualified enough to actually do this myself. So I deferred to the help of experts to do these campaigns for me with Google ads and Facebook ads, and I'd pay pretty large retainers for a PPC agency to come in and run our ads. And after a couple of months of very like lackluster results, I took a look under the hoods to see what they were doing, and I was shocked to see that they weren't recycling any of the creatives. It was the same creatives the whole time. They weren't doing any experimentations on targeting or anything, like some of the like basic stuff that you would imagine that professionals would do. And I'm like, well, maybe the emperor wears no clothes, right? Maybe these experts, so quote unquote, aren't really that good. Maybe I actually can figure this out and do it myself. I mean, I got to this point. Why can't I just take one step further and learn this as well, right? So that's when I stopped reading courses and I thought of this new hack to kind of learn things in a more efficient manner. So I went to Upwork, and instead of hiring specialists to do the work for me, I would hire them to simply jump on a call with me, and we would do a screen share, and I would just show them my campaigns that I would set up before I put them live. So I would go through the motions and set up all of the campaigns, do all the targeting, set up the creatives, and then just have it on pause, right? Because I wasn't exactly sure, did I do it the right way? Remember, I didn't have an in-house team. It was just essentially me running the marketing and also kind of managing a couple of other things operational wise. But by having these people to jump on a call and just help validate that I'm doing things the correct way, it really gave me a lot of confidence to move forward and execute rather than just mindlessly consume content, which I know it's really easy to do, is just read and say, oh, I'm learning, I'm working, I'm doing, but like you're not actually doing anything, right? Like, what are you really doing? So the key is to create more than you consume. And once you sense that you're consuming more than you're creating, that's when the alarm bells need to start ringing. And like you need to start asking yourself, do a reality check and be like, what am I really doing right now? Like, is this the most productive usage of my time? So that really was the spark and the idea behind GrowthMentor, because it's like, well, this really helps talking to other people that are peers that have a lot more experience than I do, just for that validation, and long story short, like I then took that hack that I did and productized it, and that's essentially what GrowthMentor is.
Yeah, no, there's some brilliant points there. I mean, you talked about getting to a point where you, I guess, got frustrated and you're doing loads of research, as you said, videos, blog posts, and you kind of get into this analysis paralysis, as you said, and you kind of look for the perfect level of knowledge, I guess, and you want to keep improving, but you're not testing it, you're not doing anything. And then on the other side, you like you said, you deferred to experts, but kind of the results were lackluster, and when you looked under the hood, it wasn't what you expected. So you've kind of got those two polar opposites there, and I think exactly as you described out here, taking those steps through is fantastic advice. So it's almost, I think it's kind of the adult learning model that talks about teach me, show me, and then let me do it myself.
Exactly, yeah.
And I think that stands you in good stead to kind of develop those skills. And I guess even, moving forward, if you were then to defer to experts again, and I'm making inverted commas here, which is difficult to do on a podcast, but you've now built that experience, you can validate, what it is that you think they should be doing. So I think, there's some really good points you drew out there. So, so essentially you said, you took this concept, you tested it using Upwork, you built out the GrowthMentor platform. And I guess in a way, you built some serious business skills at euroVPS. But what did you find some of the challenges were with tackling this new platform that you were building out, that perhaps, the skills that you weren't, that you didn't have, or things that you weren't doing at euroVPS?
I'm not a programmer. So I'll just say that first, just to set the precedent. And GrowthMentor is built on Ruby on Rails, and it has a Vue.js front end, and it's a highly technical product. So definitely the biggest challenge for me was communicating with developers and learning product management, like on the fly. And I gotta say that's the biggest challenge for me is definitely been dealing with developers, because they think really differently, very calculated, and they don't have patience for indecisiveness and for disorganization. And those are two of the negative traits that I am always trying to improve on myself. So as you can imagine, it was quite a bit of a challenge there, and it still is. So organization, product management, and managing technical roles firsthand, even though you don't really have those skills. That's definitely been my biggest challenge, and I think that I'm constantly working on improving. Also, another thing that I've gotten, hopefully, I'd like to say that I'm quite good at right now is just networking and being able to, GrowthMentor in and of itself is just a big network of highly skilled people in growth that are all kind of united by a common desire to give back and help people by sharing their insights. So being an ambassador of that and saying, hey guys, like it actually feels good to help, to give back. That was a very exciting part of building GrowthMentor, being able to be that mouthpiece for that message, which I think it's a noble message in and of itself, because like, great, you can read stuff online and we can take courses, or we can ask for help on forums, but nothing really beats that one-to-one chat that you have with somebody, and when you can actually see. I know it's on Zoom calls many times, but being able to get that instant sort of feedback on your ideas, it's invaluable, and it's gratifying from both sides, right? Like from the mentor side and from the mentee side, because it does feel good to kind of help.
Yeah, no, I think that comment is totally, it's spot on. And, thinking about this podcast as well, as I said, the intention is to obviously help people in their careers and help them develop transferable skills. But at the same time, I'm learning so much from interviewing, people from different walks of life, people that have gone through different career journeys, and it's absolutely rewarding. So, I totally concur on that. And I think to your point of GrowthMentor, and, you drew out the point of networking, and, that's what served you really well. And I guess actually that's how we met, and how I got to become part of the GrowthMentor platform as well. And, so yes, I'm a little biased, but I totally concur, there is that noble cause of helping others. And I think that's a really great takeaway. What would you say the most, I suppose, what was your biggest surprise in kind of getting GrowthMentor started?
The biggest surprise was that it wasn't a massive success immediately out of the gates.
And how did you deal with that?
I was the typical founder. It's like, we launched, it's going to be like, watch out, everyone's going to come through. And it's like, it's not like that at all.
Yeah. So so certainly there were some learnings that you took away from that, what was your thinking? Did you think it's like, there's something that I've done wrong, or, it's the wrong product on the wrong market? How did you sort of
everything at the same time from all different directions? It comes like you doubt yourself, you doubt the maybe your angle is wrong. Not really yourself. I didn't really doubt myself that much in the idea, because I knew that this needed to exist. And I had so much good feedback from people before, right? Like before I even launched it, I did a lot of calls. I don't remember when you joined, if you joined after I launched it before, but I onboarded like 30 mentors before we even opened the doors. So like I had the validation that like it was something that was needed, but just when we launched, like I had these this delusional ideas, right? That like, I guess somehow it's just everyone's going to contact me and try and get, throw their money at me. And it just doesn't really work that way, because I read this awesome quote from somebody on this one forum. Anyway, I don't remember exactly where it is. And it's like, starting a startup is like war, except instead of instead of thousands of people shooting at you with machine guns, they're all just ignoring you. Right? And you're just trying to get their attention. Like there's just so much noise out there that you just need that consistency. You just keep at it and keep adding value and show that your product or whatever it is doing its job and that people like it. Right? And there's no magic formula to it. You just have to stick at it every single day. Just bring it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great observation, and I really like that analogy. I think, and if you put that into a career context, the product is you. And you're out of university, you're out of school, you're out of college, and you're like, I'm absolutely going to ace this. I'm going to get the first job I apply for.
Yeah.
And we're often in for a rude awakening, whether it's straight out of university or making a career shift or changing jobs. So I think there's some great parallels there in terms of saying, well, there's some stuff I need to learn, and I've got to manage my expectations accordingly. So I think that's a great bit of advice. And I guess, so you talked about the start, and I think I did get involved prior to the launch of the platform when you were recruiting the initial bunch of mentors. So, obviously in a couple of years, it's come a long way. The platform's grown both from a mentor point of view and from a mentee point of view. Where are you now in terms of taking the platform to the next level and the sorts of stuff that you've been learning? What are your thoughts on that?
So we're just taking it day by day right now. We have zero aspirations to raise any funding at this point. One of the things that I've really decided, and this actually kind of hit me a couple of weeks ago, I'm firmly in camp bootstrapped. So yeah, I'm on the record saying that now. Oh my God. Right. And we're just taking it. We're sustainability, right? That's for us the most important thing. Just making sure that there's a healthy balance on the marketplace, because marketplaces, they really. I wrote a blog post about why marketplaces are like swimming pools a year ago. You really need to make sure that the balance is right. If you don't have enough chlorine or enough calcium, it turns green, or it turns, it's tender love and care, right? In the same sense, if you have too much supply, then the demand, then the supply gets a little bit angry because, hey, I'm not getting any bookings or anything like that. So for us, it's just right now, just making sure that things just roll on smoothly in terms of the balance of the marketplace, and as well, obviously trying to raise awareness through content and marketing, which is the channel that we've kind of realized works for us the most. One of the things that I realized is that I was spreading myself way too thin across trying many different things over the year, because I thought that's what you were supposed to do, right? You have to do PPC, you have to spend money on this, that, the other, and it's not really always the case. If you see that something's working, and this can apply, from a career perspective as well, right? Just double down on that and put 100% of your effort on that. Maybe not 100%, maybe 80%, and then put the 20%, kind of like Pareto's principle in a sense, 20% just for experimentation, just to make sure, because it's good to experiment with a bunch of different things. It gives you perspective, and ultimately, when you're more of a bit of a generalist, I think that helps spawn your creativity big time. Even if it's just superficial exposure to certain topics.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think certainly working to your strengths, applying those, doubling down on those, recognizing where you've got gaps and spending 20% of the effort trying to close those, or I guess get enough knowledge so you know what good looks like. So that's a great piece of advice. So that's been a really great journey that you've taken us on, and some really good learnings and insights there. So I guess just before we end off, I'd like to end with a few short questions. And the first one is, looking back now, as you said earlier on, hindsight is always 20/20. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
18-year-old self, I would say probably I was going to say the whole don't party so much. Yeah, I did party a bit too much in university. Spend some time and actually work on self-development when you're still in university, and learn some skills there when your brain is working a million miles an hour. That's a very, very good time to invest in yourself. I would have definitely done that a little bit more if I could go back in time.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice.
I mean, it's
Absolutely.
like an uncomfortable truth, like, it's just ubiquitous partying and all that. But I mean, sometimes we overdo it.
Yeah, no, it's all about balance, but I think that bit of self-development really, really important. Okay, my next question then is is there a single book or a single habit that you'd recommend to the listeners?
A single book or a single habit. I'll do the habit one. So the habit, it's I have a 1, 2, 3 list. Uh, 3 things that I want to do every day, because many times I just am flooded with different things that I'm working on concurrently at the same time, and it's difficult to prioritize. But if you focus on just crossing off 3 things every day, then I mean, it's the gains that you're going to make are going to be momentous, like over the next couple of months.
Yeah, you did mention that earlier in terms of focusing yourself and your
Yeah.
priorities and ticking those things off as done. So, yeah, no,
And
that's a
Blue
great
Ocean
habit to have.
The Blue Ocean Strategy is probably my favorite business book.
Okay, that's brilliant. I'll what I'll do is I'll include that in the show notes anyway. Just make a note of that. Okay, brilliant. And finally, where can people go to, get in contact with you or find out a little bit more about either of your businesses?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search Foti Panagio, or growthmentor.com. That's the website of GrowthMentor, and euroVPS.com is the name of, yeah, euroVPS.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I'll put those links in the show notes as well. So yeah, no, but thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to say thanks again. Thanks so much for your time. I realize it's a bit later in Greece, so I certainly appreciate you giving away some of your evening. And yeah, thanks so much for appearing on
No,
the show.
it was my pleasure, man.
And speak soon. Wow, there were some really great takeaways there. And as usual, in listening back to the show after the interview, I've gone through and made a few notes and key takeaways that really resonated with me. As a listener of the show, there'll obviously be points that resonate with you. So just before I end the show, I wanted to just play back some of the notes that I took because I think these were really important. So one of the things that Foti had said was, and this was related to the start of his career when he started at euroVPS, was that he was trusted to be the best that he could. And this was very important because ultimately it allowed him to shape the role and make that role his own. He talked about making mistakes and those sorts of things, but the fact was that he was working to be the best that he could was really important. One thing he talked about earlier in the show was how important it was to build relationships. And I think this is key. This is key in our work lives, our personal lives, our careers. So building relationships is absolutely critical. He said that he learned from everything. So everything that he did, he learned from. And one of the interesting things when he spoke about his time in the army was the pride of doing the dirty work, or, I guess getting stuck in getting your hands dirty per se. It's a great teacher. And, I think we've said it before in previous podcasts that doing the work yourself is very important if you're going to be expecting other people to do it later. It's a really good leadership trait, and it really gets you involved with and knowing what the detail involves. He said it helps him do things the right way, so doing things at a high level of quality in the right way for the right reasons. One of the things that he also drew out was being realistic about your strengths and weaknesses, and really focusing down on what your strengths were, doubling down on what your strengths were, and using that to grow. He talked a lot about breaking down goals. He said he was an avid fan of a tick list. So obviously listing out his goals, going through those, wanting to cover off at least 3 a day. That's a great piece of advice. Not only does it help you track your goals, but there's also a certain level of fulfillment in being able to tick stuff off or say this is complete. Foti said he just runs a list on a daily basis of the 3 things he wants to achieve that day. I do something similar. I use a kind of Kanban approach where I have a whole backlog of tasks. I then choose the tasks that I want to be focusing on. I kind of create those in an in progress bucket, and then once I'm done, I move those to complete. Also, it gives you a great sense of accomplishment, as I've said. You can do that anyway. I use Trello software, but you can also do it using Post-its. You can put them up on a wall, up on a whiteboard, move them around. So a really great tool to track progress. Some of the other things that Foti drew out, and I think this is a great piece of advice, is that to create more than you consume. And I think It's so easy to sit back and, binge watch Netflix or Amazon Prime or Disney Plus. There's just so many of them. And while these are a great thing to do to relax, it's really important that we learn to create more than we consume. So that's a really good takeaway. Foti talked about learning on the fly, and this is something one of our previous guests, Llewellyn Fernandez, spoke about, that just-in-time learning. So again, really happy to see that it's working for other people. We talked about building relationships, but also just to kind of draw out the networking aspects of that, and getting used to working with people with different traits. And I think then the last few things that Foti mentioned that were important to me was I think he called it Camp Bootstrap, about bootstrapping everything. And I think this is a really great advice, not incurring masses of expense to do something that might not work, or investing loads of time in something that you haven't tested. So really taking a bootstrap approach to, whether it's building your own business, whether it's building a product, whether it's building your skills, whatever it is. I think that's a really great piece of advice. Don't spread yourself too thin was something else that came out of that. I think that's a really good point. And so I think those were the key things that Foti drew out. So again, an episode full of insights and good takeaways. So before we end off, I'd just like to remind everyone again about the podcast review party. It's running primarily on Apple Podcasts, because I think that's one of the few platforms that does allow you to leave a review. So all I'm asking is you, as a listener, please go to the podcast and leave a review of the show, an honest review. And I will be selecting a lucky winner from those who leave a review. I'm running this till the 12th of June, so please get those reviews in by the 12th of June. I'll be drawing the lucky winner on the 13th of June. If you do have, or if you do listen on another platform that does allow reviews, that's absolutely fine. Whether it's Deezer or Stitcher, Spotify, please also leave a review on that platform. Whichever platform you do leave a review on, just take a screen grab of it and email it through to me, so I can see whose reviews are whose, and I can select the winner from that. So please, before the 12th of June, lucky draw on the 13th of June. Thank you in advance for doing this. It does mean a lot to me. Your time listening to the show means a lot to me as well. So thank you again. And I look forward to hearing from you, or speaking to you rather, on the next show. Bye-bye for now.